My name's Rachel, and I'm 28 years old. I never thought a single dinner with my family would change the way I saw everything: my work, my worth, even my mother. It was supposed to be a harmless Tuesday evening, but I became the night the lens through which I viewed my entire life shifted irrevocably. It started, as usual, with a comparison. The clinking of wine glasses and the warm, garlicky scent of fresh bread had lulled me into a false sense of security. That's when my mother's voice, laced with a familiar, weary sigh, cut through the restaurant chatter like a knife. "You're such a disappointment, Rachel. Look at your cousin. She has a real career." The words, delivered so casually over a plate of bruschetta, hung in the air, toxic and thick. Forks froze midair. I could feel every eye at the table shift toward me, a wave of silent, pitying attention that made my cheeks burn. We were sitting at my favorite little Italian place, Bella Sera, with its checkered tablecloths and friendly, unpretentious vibe. I'd picked it precisely because the menu wasn't too expensive and the noise level usually provided a comfortable buffer. I thought its cozy, forgiving atmosphere might make things easier, might soften the edges of my family's expectations. I was wrong. The very warmth of the place now felt like a mockery, highlighting the chill that had settled over our table. Across from me sat my cousin Olivia, a vision of success in her crisp, white blazer that seemed to repel even a speck of dust. She was holding court, expertly detailing her recent promotion to senior associate at a prestigious corporate law firm. My parents, my aunt, and even my younger brother were hanging on her every word, their faces glowing with admiration. She was the golden child, the one whose achievements were a shared currency of pride for the entire family. And me? I was the one who, as my uncle once said with a dismissive wave of his hand, played with wax. That's what they called it anyway. What I actually did was run a small but thriving online business where I designed and handcrafted sustainable home fragrances. It wasn't just candles, it was diffusers with unique hand-carved reeds and soaps made with botanicals I sourced from local farms. It had started as a therapeutic side project during the lonely, anxious months of the pandemic, a way to create small pockets of comfort and light. Through late nights and relentless effort, it had grown into something real, something that actually turned a profit and, more importantly, brought genuine joy to my customers. But no one at that table, especially my mother, ever saw it as anything more than a quaint, slightly embarrassing hobby. As Olivia talked about multi-million-dollar mergers, I instinctively tucked my hands, still lightly calloused and subtly scented with sandalwood and bergamot from that afternoon's pour, under the table. Mom leaned back in her chair, a self-satisfied smile playing on her lips as her wine glass caught the soft overhead light, glinting like a warning signal. "You know, Olivia just bought her second condo," she announced, her voice pitched just loudly enough to draw eavesdroppers from the neighboring tables. "An investment property, of course. And Rachel?" She paused, letting the comparison hang in the fragrant air. "Still hasn't quite figured out what she wants to do with her life." The fabric of the linen napkin in my lap twisted under my grip, and a faint, sickening rip echoed silently in my ears. I felt the delicate threads give way, a small, secret destruction that mirrored the one happening inside me. "Mom?" I said, my voice a strained whisper, fighting to be heard over the sudden roar of my own heartbeat. "I actually run my own business now. It's doing really well." "Oh, please," she scoffed, the sound short and sharp as a slap. She didn't even look at me, addressing her words to the table at large. "That candle hobby? Selling a few jars to friends isn't a career, sweetheart. Let's be realistic." Olivia offered a thin, diplomatic smile, the kind reserved for naive children and lost causes. "It's great that you're doing something creative, Ratch, but maybe you should think about getting some real-world experience. It builds character." The defenses lined up on my tongue, a battalion of hard facts. "I've shipped over 10,000 orders this year. I employed 2 part-timers to keep up with demand. I was featured in a major sustainability blog last month. But the words crumbled into ash before they could find air. What was the use? Because no matter how many sales I made or how many glowing reviews I read, in that chair, under that light, I was still that little girl with a glue stick and popsicle sticks, desperately trying to make my mother proud. When the leather-bound check presenter finally arrived, it landed with a soft thud that silenced the table. As if on cue, everyone became profoundly fascinated by their own phones, their screens casting a bluish glow on their averted faces. My uncle let out a gruff cuggle. Well, Rachel can get this one. She's not paying rent on a real office anyway. Mom didn't even glance in my direction. With one perfectly manicured finger, she simply slit the bill across the tablecloth until it rested against my empty plate. "Consider it motivation," she said flatly. I offered a faint, brittle smile and placed my card in the waiter's hand without even looking at the total. Only later, as he returned with the slip, did I see the number: $612.80. The amount was a sting, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the message, a final, expensive punctuation to the evening's narrative of my inadequacy. But as I signed my name with a steady hand, a quiet realization settled over me. What none of them knew as they gathered their coats and offered hollow goodbyes was that this wouldn't be the last bill I'd quietly pay. It was, instead, the first installment on a future they couldn't yet see. After that night, a new, painful awareness sharpened my hearing. I started noticing how often my own name, Rachel, was used as the family's favorite cautionary tale, a shorthand for potential squandered. At birthday parties and over holiday phone calls, the phrases were always the same, delivered with a sympathetic shake of the head. "She's still figuring things out," my aunt would murmur. "She just doesn't have that killer instinct, that direction," my uncle would agree. And the one that cut the deepest from a well-meaning cousin: "She's so artistically talented. It's such a shame she never really applied herself." I had become the before picture in their minds, a permanent work in progress. Meanwhile, the requests from Mom began. Small and seemingly innocent at first. A phone call would always start with the usual pleasantries before the pivot. "Could you be a dear and help me with the electricity bill this month?" she'd ask, her voice tinged with a carefully crafted weariness. "It's just a bit higher than I budgeted for. I'll pay you back when I can." Of course, she never did. I told myself it didn't bother me. I wanted to help. She'd been financially adrift since Dad passed, and I had the money coming in. A quiet but powerful river of income they all chose to ignore. My business had truly taken off online. Steady orders, customers from Tokyo to Toronto, and collaborations with eco-conscious home brands. I was quietly earning more than Olivia ever did in her corner office, but no one in my family cared about that because my success didn't come with a business card or a power suit. The little favors grew. I even covered Mom's mortgage a few times when she'd sigh heavily about falling behind and the stress of it all. She never asked directly, she just laid out the problem like a trap, and I, the dutiful daughter, always walked right into it, offering the solution that spared her the discomfort of a direct request. But then, one humid afternoon, I overheard something that shattered the fragile peace I had built. I'd stopped by her house unannounced to drop off a bag of groceries, thinking it would be a nice surprise. The back door was open, and her voice, warm with confidential concern, drifted through the screen. She was in the backyard with our neighbor, Mrs. Daly. "It's been so hard, truly," Mom was saying, her tone laced with martyrdom. "You know, with Rachel's little candle business, well, it's not really panning out. She's not making any proper money. I've been helping her as much as I can, just to keep her afloat. A mother worries, you know?" I froze in the doorway, the weight of the grocery bag suddenly immense in my arms. The cold carton of milk pressed against my chest. The words echoed, cruel and absurd. Helping me? For a year, my automatic payments had kept her afloat, a silent secret I wore like a shield. To hear her claim the opposite broke something open inside me. When she called weeks later, her voice sweetly asking for $2,000 for a leaking roof, I knew it was time. I invited the whole family to the grand opening of my new office, a converted warehouse bearing my brand, Amber and Ash Studio, in bold gold letters. "Is this where you work?" Mom asked, confused. "I own it," I replied. After they'd settled, I spoke. "I want to thank you for your support," I began. Mom laughed. "Don't be dramatic, Rachel." So I slid a folder across the table, copies of every bill I'd paid for her. Her face paled. "You said you were helping me," I said quietly. "But the truth is, my business cleared nearly $500,000 last year." The silence was absolute. Olivia blinked. "500,000? "I never needed your approval," I continued, my voice steady. "I wanted your respect. You gave me pity." I looked directly at my mother. "So, if you need help with that roof, you can hire me as your consultant." A month later, Mom called, her voice small. "I was wrong. I was just scared you'd fail like I did." "I know, but you can't keep someone small to soothe your own regrets." That was a year ago. Today, my products are in 30 stores. I bought my own home, filled with the sense of my success. At family gatherings, Mom now brags about me. Olivia even left her law firm to start her own business, inspired by my journey. You don't owe anyone proof of your worth. Your work will speak for itself, louder than their doubts ever could. They may say I don't have a real career, but I built a real life. And that is something no one can ever take from me.